The sky turned dark as rain clouds gathered over the city. It was a regular Saturday afternoon in the south side of Chicago. Two brothers, Andrew, 16, and his younger brother Khalil, 15, were walking home from the community basketball court. They had spent the whole morning practicing their shots and playing with friends. "Man, we better hurry. Grandma's gonna worry if we're late for lunch," Andrew said, looking up at the darkening sky. He pulled his hoodie over his head as the first drops of rain began to fall. Khalil nodded, adjusting the gym bag over his shoulder. "Yeah, and you know she made her special mac and cheese today." The rain started coming down harder now, and the brothers picked up their pace. They were taking their usual shortcut through Oak Street when they noticed something unusual. A sleek black car, one of those expensive foreign ones they'd only seen in movies, was pulled over on the side of the road. The hazard lights were blinking, and a man in a fancy suit was standing beside it, looking frustrated. "Looks like someone's having a bad day," Khalil said, nodding toward the car. Andrew slowed down, watching as the man knelt beside the car, examining a flat tire. The rain was soaking through the man's expensive suit, but he kept trying to figure out what to do. "Should we?" Khalil started to ask. Before he could finish, Andrew was already changing direction. "Come on," he said. "Grandma would be mad if we just walked by." The brothers approached the stranded driver. Up close, they could see he was older, maybe in his 60s, with gray hair and a kind face that currently showed signs of stress. "Need some help, sir?" Andrew called out, raising his voice over the sound of the rain. The man looked up, surprise crossing his face. "Oh, hello there," he said, standing up straight. "I seem to have a flat, and I'm afraid changing tires isn't my strong suit." "We can help," Khalil offered with a smile. "My brother and I change tires on our uncle's cars all the time." The man looked relieved. "That would be very kind of you. I'm Richard, by the way." "I'm Andrew, and this is my brother Khalil," Andrew replied, already kneeling down to examine the flat tire. "Do you have a spare and tools in the trunk?" Richard nodded and pressed a button on his key fob. The trunk popped open, revealing a spotless interior with a hidden compartment for the spare. For the next 20 minutes, the brothers worked together in the pouring rain. Andrew showed Khalil how to properly position the jack while he loosened the lug nuts. Their movements were practiced and efficient, despite the water running down their faces and soaking through their clothes. Richard stood nearby, holding an umbrella he'd found in his car over the boys as best he could, though they were already drenched. "You two are quite skilled at this," Richard commented, watching them work. Andrew shrugged. "Our Uncle Ray taught us. He says everyone should know how to change a tire." "Your uncle sounds like a wise man," Richard said. As they worked, Richard asked them questions about school and their hobbies. The brothers explained they went to Washington High School, where Andrew was captain of the math club and Khalil played basketball. "I want to be an engineer someday," Andrew shared as he carefully tightened the lug nuts on the new tire. "I love figuring out how things work and fixing problems." "And what about you?" Richard asked Khalil. "I want to start my own business," Khalil replied confidently. "Not sure what kind yet, but I know I want to build something from scratch." Richard nodded thoughtfully, a small smile forming on his face. When the job was done, the brothers stepped back to admire their work. The new tire was securely in place, and the tools were neatly packed away in the trunk. "There you go, sir. Good as new," Andrew said, wiping his hands on his already soaked jeans. Richard reached for his wallet. "I can't thank you enough. Please, let me give you something for your trouble." Both brothers shook their heads. "No need for that," Andrew said firmly. "Our grandma always says help should come from the heart, not for reward," Khalil added. Richard looked at them with newfound respect. "Your grandmother sounds like an extraordinary woman." He put his wallet away but pulled out a business card instead. "At least take my card. My name is Richard Harmon." The brothers didn't recognize the name, but they politely accepted the card. "Thank you again," Richard said, getting into his car. "You've reminded me of something important today." As the brothers watched the expensive car drive away, they had no idea that this chance encounter in the rain would change their lives forever. The rain kept pouring as Andrew and Khalil finished helping Richard with his tire. Water dripped from their clothes and faces, but neither of the brothers seemed to mind. They had been raised to help others when they could, rain or shine. You boys are soaked through, Richard said, concern showing on his face. Can I at least give you a ride home? Andrew looked at his brother, then back at Richard. That's real nice of you, sir, but our grandma taught us not to get in cars with people we just met. No offense. Richard smiled warmly. None taken. Your grandmother is teaching you well. He glanced at his now-fixed tire and back at the boys. I really do want to thank you properly. Most people would have just walked by, especially in this weather. Khalil shrugged, his wet t-shirt clinging to his shoulders. It's what anybody should do, right? We saw you needed help, so we helped. Not everybody thinks that way, Richard replied, his voice quieter now. He looked at the brothers with genuine curiosity. Tell me more about yourselves. What are your plans after high school? The brothers exchanged glances, surprised by the question. People from their neighborhood didn't often get asked about their futures by strangers in expensive cars. I want to be an engineer, Andrew said, standing a little taller despite his soggy clothes. I'm good with math and science. Our school doesn't have the best resources, but I study hard. Richard nodded thoughtfully. And what kind of engineering interests you? Civil engineering, maybe, Andrew answered. I want to build things that help communities. Our neighborhood needs better roads, safer bridges, stuff like that. That's admirable, Richard said, genuinely impressed. And you? He asked, turning to Khalil. Khalil shifted his weight from one foot to the other. I want to start my own business someday. Don't know exactly what kind yet, but something that creates jobs where we live. Too many people can't find good work. Richard's eyes lit up at this. An entrepreneur, that takes courage. A car drove by, splashing water from a puddle. The brothers stepped back just in time, but Richard's expensive shoes got wet. Sorry about your shoes, sir, Andrew said. Richard waved it off. These? Don't worry about it. He looked at his watch, an expensive timepiece that probably cost more than everything the brothers owned combined. I don't want to keep you boys any longer in this rain, but I'd like to ask you one more thing. Where do you go to school? Washington High, over on 54th Street, Khalil answered. Richard pulled out another business card and wrote something on the back. Here's my personal number. If you ever need anything, advice about college, questions about engineering or business, give me a call. The brothers looked at each other, confused but polite. Thank you, sir, Andrew said, carefully tucking the card into his pocket to keep it dry. No, thank you, Richard replied earnestly. You've reminded me of something important today. As they said their goodbyes, Richard added, Would you mind telling me your grandmother's name and address? I'd like to send her a proper thank you for raising such fine young men. The brothers hesitated, their grandmother's warnings about sharing personal information with strangers ringing in their ears. Seeing their hesitation, Richard quickly added, Or perhaps I could send something to your school instead. To recognize your good deed. Our school could always use help, Andrew said carefully. The science lab equipment is pretty old. Richard smiled. Washington High on 54th Street. I'll remember that. As the billionaire drove away in his expensive car, the brothers continued their walk home, unaware that the man they'd just helped was Richard Harmon, founder and CEO of Harmon Technologies, worth over $12 billion. Think he'll really send something to the school? Khalil asked as they walked. Andrew shrugged. Probably not. Rich folks make promises all the time. But it was nice of him to offer. By the time they reached their grandmother's small house, they had almost forgotten about the man with the flat tire. They were more concerned about explaining their soaked clothes and being late for lunch. Little did they know that Richard Harmon never forgot a promise, and their lives were about to change in ways they couldn't imagine. The next morning, Sunday, started like any other in the Davis household. Grandma Rose was up early, humming gospel tunes while making her famous buttermilk pancakes. The smell drifted upstairs, pulling Andrew and Khalil from their sleep better than any alarm clock ever could. Boys, breakfast is ready. Rose called up the stairs, her voice strong despite her 70 years. The brothers stumbled downstairs, still groggy but hungry. Their clothes from yesterday were hanging on the line outside, slowly drying in the morning sun. Morning, Grandma, Andrew said, giving her a quick kiss on the cheek before sliding into his chair at the small kitchen table. Khalil followed, yawning. Those pancakes smell amazing. Well, they taste even better. Rose said with a smile, placing a stack in front of each boy. "Now eat up and tell me again why you two came home, looking like you fell in the river yesterday." The brothers exchanged glances, mouths already full of pancake. "We told you, Grandma," Andrew said after swallowing. "We helped a man with a flat tire. No big deal." Rose said, not entirely convinced there wasn't more to the story. "Well, it was good of you boys to help. That's how I raised you." They were halfway through breakfast when the phone rang. Their landline rarely rang on Sunday mornings. Most people they knew were either at church or sleeping in. Rose wiped her hands on her apron and answered. "Hello, Davis residence." The brothers watched as their grandmother's expression changed from curiosity to confusion. "Yes, this is Rose Davis. Who did you say you're calling for?" "Richard Harmon." "And you're his what?" At the mention of Richard's name, Andrew and Khalil looked at each other in surprise. "Just a moment," Rose said into the phone, then covered the receiver with her hand. "Boys, do you know a Richard Harmon? His assistant is on the phone saying he wants to meet with us today." "That's the guy with the flat tire, Grandma," Khalil explained, his pancakes forgotten. "The man you helped yesterday is calling our house?" Rose asked, eyebrows raised. Andrew shrugged, just as confused. "He asked for our address, but we didn't give it to him. We just told him our school." Rose uncovered the receiver. "May I ask what this is regarding?" "I see. Well, we're just having breakfast now, 1 o'clock. I suppose that would be fine. Yes, we'll be here." She hung up the phone slowly, looking thoughtful. "What did they say, Grandma?" Andrew asked. "That was someone named Patricia, saying she's the personal assistant to Richard Harmon, CEO of Harmon Technologies." Rose shook her head in disbelief. She said Mr. Harmon was very impressed with you boys and wants to come thank you personally at 1 o'clock today. Khalil nearly choked on his orange juice. Harmon Technologies? The company that makes those fancy phones and computers? That Richard Harmon? "Apparently so," Rose said, sitting down heavily. "And somehow he found our address." "But how?" Andrew wondered aloud. "We only told him our school." Rose gave them a knowing look. "When you're as rich as that man is, finding an address isn't hard. The question is, why would a billionaire go to all that trouble just to thank you for changing a tire?" The brothers spent the next few hours in a state of nervous excitement. Rose made them clean the entire house, even though it was already tidy. She changed into her Sunday church dress, the one with the small flower pattern, and made the boys put on their best clothes. "If a billionaire is coming to our house, we're going to look respectable," she insisted. At precisely 1 o'clock, a sleek black car pulled up outside their modest home. Neighbors peered from windows, curious about the unusual visitor. "He really came," Khalil whispered, watching from behind the curtain as a chauffeur opened the door and Richard Harmon stepped out, holding a small gift basket. "Be polite, but don't get your hopes up," Rose cautioned her grandsons. "Rich folks can be unpredictable." The doorbell rang, and Andrew took a deep breath before opening it. Richard Harmon stood there, wearing a casual but clearly expensive outfit. His smile was genuine when he saw the brothers. "Hello again," he said warmly. "I hope you don't mind me dropping by. There's something important I'd like to discuss with all of you." Rose stepped forward, her back straight and her gaze direct. "Mr. Harmon, I'm Rose Davis, these boys' grandmother. Would you like to come in and tell us exactly what this is about?" Richard's smile widened. "Mrs. Davis, it's an honor to meet you. You've raised 2 exceptional young men, and I'd like to talk about their future." Rose led Richard into their small living room. The furniture was worn but clean, family photos covered the walls, and a small trophy shelf displayed Andrew's math awards and Khalil's basketball medals. "Please have a seat, Mr. Harmon," Rose said, gesturing to their best armchair. Richard sat down, placing the gift basket on the coffee table. "This is just a small thank you for your hospitality," he explained. "Some tea and cookies from a bakery I like." The brothers sat on the couch across from him, trying not to fidget. Rose remained standing, her arms crossed. "Now, Mr. Harmon," she said firmly, "what exactly brings a man like you to our home?" Richard nodded, respecting her directness. "Mrs. Davis, I want to be completely honest with you. When your grandsons helped me yesterday, I was having one of the worst days of my life." The room fell silent as Richard continued. I had just left a board meeting where my own executives were pushing to move our factory overseas to save money. A factory that employs over 300 people in this city. He shook his head. I was driving around trying to clear my head when I got that flat tire. Andor and Khalil exchanged looks, surprised by this revelation. When your boy stopped to help me without wanting anything in return, it reminded me why I started my company in the first place. To help people, not just make money. Rose's expression softened slightly, but she remained cautious. That's a nice story, Mr. Harmon, but it doesn't explain why you tracked down our address. You're right, Richard acknowledged. Mrs. Davis, I grew up not far from here. My mother raised me alone, working 2 jobs. We didn't have much, but like you, she taught me the value of hard work and helping others. He turned to the brothers. When I was about your age, a teacher saw potential in me and helped me get a scholarship to study computer science. That opportunity changed my life. He leaned forward, his eyes earnest. I want to do the same for you boys. The room went still. Even Rose seemed at a loss for words. What exactly are you proposing? She finally asked. Richard took a deep breath. I want to establish a full scholarship fund for both Andor and Khalil, covering their education through college. Whatever they want to study, wherever they want to go. Khalil's mouth dropped open. Andor gripped the edge of the couch. There's more, Richard continued. I visited Washington High this morning. Their computer lab is outdated, their science equipment is ancient, and their library needs serious updating. You went to our school? Andor asked, finding his voice. Richard nodded. I did, and I've decided to donate $2 million to renovate their facilities. Rose had to sit down now. $2 million? And that's not all, Richard said, his excitement growing. I want to establish a mentorship program at Harmon Technologies for students interested in STEM and business. Your grandsons would be the first participants, but the program would be open to other students as well. The brothers looked at each other, unable to believe what they were hearing. Why? Rose asked quietly. Why do all this because of a flat tire? Richard's expression became serious. Because 30 years ago, someone gave me a chance when I needed it most. And because your grandsons showed me that kindness and character still exist in a world that often seems to have forgotten those values. He pulled out some papers from his jacket. These are the details of my proposal. I'd like you to look them over, talk about it as a family. My lawyer can meet with you to answer any questions. Rose took the papers with slightly trembling hands. This is overwhelming, Mr. Harmon. I understand, he said gently. Take all the time you need. Andor finally spoke up. If we accept, what would you expect from us? Richard smiled. Just 3 things. Work hard, stay true to the values your grandmother has taught you, and someday when you're in a position to help someone else, do it. The brothers looked at their grandmother, whose eyes were glistening with unshed tears. This could change everything for them, Richard said softly to Rose. Give them opportunities they deserve, but might never get otherwise. Rose looked at her grandsons, the boys she'd raised since they were toddlers after their parents died in a car accident. Boys who never complained about having less than others, who worked hard in school despite the odds, who stopped to help a stranger in the rain. We'll need to talk about this, she said finally, as a family. Richard stood up. Of course, I'll leave you to discuss it. He handed Rose his card. Call me when you've decided. Whatever you choose, it was an honor meeting all of you. As Richard headed toward the door, the future of the Davis family hung in the balance, all because of a flat tire on a rainy afternoon. 3 weeks after Richard's visit, Washington High School was buzzing with excitement. Workers in hard hats moved through the hallways, carrying equipment and taking measurements. The old computer lab was being gutted, and trucks delivered boxes of new equipment daily. Andor stood in the doorway of what used to be the science lab, watching as outdated microscopes and broken Bunsen burners were replaced with state-of-the-art equipment. Can you believe this is really happening? His friend Dean asked, standing beside him. Andor shook his head. Still feels like a dream. After long family discussions and a meeting with Richard's lawyers, the Davis family had accepted his offer. Rose had insisted on reading every line of the agreement, questioning anything she didn't understand. In the end, she decided the opportunity was too important to pass up. "Mr. Parker, look at this," called Ms. Wilson, their science teacher, waving to the principal. Her face lit up like a child on Christmas morning as she explored her new classroom. Real digital microscopes, and look at these lab stations. Mr. Parker smiled, his normally serious face relaxed with joy. "It's a new day for Washington High, Ms. Wilson." Down the hall, Khalil was helping unpack boxes in the new computer lab. Sleek monitors and towers replaced the ancient machines that often crashed during class. "Yo, Khalil," called his classmate Tyrone. "Is it true this all happened 'cause you and your brother helped some rich dude with his car?" Khalil nodded, still not quite believing it himself. "We just changed a tire, man. That's it." "Well, Mr. Harmon clearly saw something special in you boys," said Mr. Lee, the computer teacher, as he carefully set up a new keyboard. "Sometimes small acts of kindness have big ripple effects." Later that afternoon, Andrew and Khalil sat in the principal's office with 5 other students who had been selected for the first mentorship program at Harmon Technologies. Mr. Parker looked prouder than they'd ever seen him. "You 7 students will be the pioneers of this program," he explained. "Every Saturday, you'll visit Harmon Technologies headquarters. You'll learn from engineers, programmers, and business experts. This is an opportunity most kids only dream about." A girl named Tasha raised her hand. "Will Mr. Harmon be there himself?" "Yes," Mr. Parker nodded. "He's personally overseeing the program. In fact, he specifically requested that we include students interested in both technology and business." After school, Andrew and Khalil walked home together, their backpacks heavy with new textbooks provided by the program. "Grandma was right to be suspicious at first," Andrew said thoughtfully. "This all still seems too good to be true." Khalil kicked a stone along the sidewalk. "Some kids are saying we only got picked because we're Richard's favorites, that we didn't earn it." Andrew frowned. "That bothers you?" "A little," Khalil admitted. "Jason from my math class said I only got in because of you, not because I deserved it." They walked in silence for a moment before Andrew spoke. "Remember what Richard told us when we asked why he was doing all this? He said someone gave him a chance once, and he wanted to do the same for us. He's not giving us a free ride. He's giving us a chance to prove ourselves." When they reached home, Rose was sitting on the porch, talking with their neighbor Mrs. Thompson. "There they are," Mrs. Thompson called out. "The boys who put Washington High on the map." Rose smiled at her grandsons. "How was school today?" "Amazing," Khalil answered, his earlier doubts fading. "They installed all new computers. Mr. Lee almost cried when he saw them. And the science lab has equipment I've only seen in college brochures," Andrew added. Rose nodded, her eyes reflecting a mixture of pride and wonder. "Your lives are changing fast. Just remember who you are and where you came from." That Saturday was their first day at Harmon Technologies. Richard himself greeted the 7 students in the gleaming lobby of his company headquarters. "Welcome," he said warmly. "Today is just the beginning. Some of you want to be engineers, some want to be entrepreneurs, some aren't sure yet. That's all fine. What matters is your willingness to learn and work hard." He led them through security to an elevator that took them to the top floor. When the doors opened, the students gasped. A large room had been transformed into a learning space with cutting-edge technology, comfortable workstations, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "This is your space now," Richard told them. "For the next 3 years, every Saturday, this is where you'll learn, create, and grow." As Andrew looked out over the city, seeing his neighborhood in the distance, he realized their lives would never be the same again. 2 months into the mentorship program, not everything was smooth sailing for Andrew and Khalil. The brothers sat at their kitchen table late one evening, textbooks and laptops spread out before them. Andrew rubbed his tired eyes while Khalil stared blankly at a complex business model on his screen. "I don't think I can finish this project by Saturday," Khalil muttered, closing his laptop in frustration. "This stuff is way harder than regular school." Andrew nodded, understanding his brother's struggle. "My engineering assignment is killing me too. I've been working on it for 3 days straight." The kitchen door creaked open as Grandma Rose entered, carrying 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "You boys still at it? It's nearly midnight." "Can't stop now, Grandma," Andrew said, accepting the mug gratefully. "The mentors expect our projects to be perfect." Rose pulled up a chair, concern etched on her face. "You know, there's such a thing as working too hard. You've both lost weight, and I hardly see you smile anymore. Khalil took a sip of his hot chocolate. We can't disappoint Mr. Harmon after everything he's done for us. That man wouldn't want you running yourselves into the ground, Rose said firmly. Success isn't worth much if you're too tired to enjoy it. The next day at school, things got even more complicated. As Andrew walked to his locker, he overheard a group of students talking. Those Davis brothers think they're better than everyone now, one boy said loudly. Got their special program and fancy computers. Yeah, another agreed. They'd only got picked because they helped some rich dude, not because they earned it. Andrew pretended not to hear, but the words stung. At lunch, he found Khalil sitting alone instead of with his usual basketball friends. They stop talking whenever I come around, Khalil explained when Andrew joined him. Like they think I'm gonna report back to Mr. Harmon or something. Andrew sighed. I heard some kids talking trash about us this morning too. After school, instead of heading home, the brothers walked to the community court where they used to play basketball every day. It had been weeks since they'd had time for anything but studying and the mentorship program. Remember when our biggest worry was whether we'd make the basketball team? Khalil asked, picking up a ball someone had left behind. Andrew smiled sadly. Feels like a lifetime ago. Khalil dribbled the ball, then took a shot. It bounced off the rim. I'm not even sure what I'm working toward anymore. All these business plans and market analyses, is this really what I want? Andrew leaned against the chain-link fence. I know what you mean. Sometimes I miss just fixing things with my hands instead of designing them on a computer. They stayed at the court until sunset, shooting hoops and talking like they used to. When they finally headed home, they had made a decision. The next Saturday at Harmon Technologies, they asked to speak with Richard privately after the session. In his office with its panoramic city views, they nervously explained their struggles. The program is amazing, Andrew began, but we're feeling overwhelmed. We're losing friends at school, barely sleeping, and we're not sure if we can keep up, Khalil finished. They expected disappointment, maybe even anger, but Richard's response surprised them. I've been waiting for this conversation, he said, leaning back in his chair. The mentors told me you've both been pushing yourselves too hard. You're not upset? Andrew asked. Richard shook his head. When I was your age, I nearly burned out trying to prove I deserved my scholarship. My mentor pulled me aside and told me something I never forgot. Success isn't just about working harder than everyone else. It's about working smarter and living a balanced life. He stood up and walked to the window. This program isn't meant to consume your lives. It's meant to enhance them. But we don't want to let you down, Khalil said quietly. Richard turned to face them. The day you helped me with that flat tire, you weren't trying to impress anyone. You were just being yourselves, kind, helpful young men with good hearts. That's who I invested in, not some achievement machines. Over the next few weeks, changes were made. The mentorship schedule became more flexible. Richard arranged for tutoring during school hours so the brothers could have their evenings free. He even started a basketball league for program participants, knowing physical activity was important for mental health. Slowly, the balance returned to their lives. Andrew found time to help his grandmother with repairs around the house. Khalil reconnected with his basketball teammates. And when the next school term began, Richard surprised them again by enrolling himself in the mentorship program as a student. What can you teach us? The confused teens asked. Richard smiled. I'm not here to teach today. I'm here to learn from you. Sometimes the best way to lead is to remember what it's like to follow. 5 years passed like the turning pages of a book. The small house where Andrew and Khalil grew up with their grandmother looked much the same from the outside, but inside, everything had changed. The kitchen table where they once struggled with homework was now covered with university brochures, scholarship certificates, and acceptance letters. Andrew, now 21, stood in the living room adjusting his tie while Rose fussed over his collar. Grandma, I got it, he laughed, gently catching her hands. I've been tying my own ties for years now. Rose stepped back, her eyes misty with pride. I know, but today's special. It was indeed. Andrew was graduating with honors from the State University's engineering program. Thanks to Richard's scholarship, he had been able to focus entirely on his studies without worrying about student loans or working part-time jobs. Where's Khalil? Andrew asked, checking his watch. We're gonna be late. As if on cue, the front door burst open and Khalil rushed in, carrying a small box. At 20, he was in his second year of business school, but today he was taking the day off to attend his brother's graduation. Sorry I'm late, he said, slightly out of breath. Had to pick up something important. The doorbell rang, and Rose went to answer it. Richard Harmon stood on their porch, looking much the same as he had 5 years ago, except for a few more gray hairs. Good morning, Mrs. Davis, he said warmly. Are they ready? Come in, Rose ushered him inside. The boys are just finishing up. Richard entered the living room, where Andrew and Khalil greeted him with handshakes that turned into hugs. Over the years, the formal mentorship had grown into a genuine friendship. Big day, Richard said, smiling at Andrew. How are you feeling? Nervous, Andrew admitted. But good nervous, you know. Richard nodded. I know exactly what you mean. The small convoy of cars, Richard's driver in one, Khalil driving his grandmother in another, made their way to the university. The campus was alive with excited graduates and proud families. After the ceremony, as Andrew stood clutching his engineering degree, a reporter from the local paper approached. Word had spread about the remarkable story of the two boys who helped a billionaire with a flat tire. Andrew, how does it feel to graduate today? The reporter asked. Andrew glanced at his brother, grandmother, and Richard before answering. It feels like the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. 5 years ago, my brother and I just stopped to help someone in need. We never expected it would change our lives. The reporter turned to Richard. Mr. Harmon, you've invested millions in Washington High School's STEM program and created scholarship opportunities for dozens of students. What inspired such generosity? Richard put his hand on Andrew's shoulder. These young men reminded me of something important, that success isn't measured by what you have, but by what you give back. Later that evening, the Davis family, along with Richard, gathered at a restaurant to celebrate. As they waited for dessert, Khalil stood up and cleared his throat. I have an announcement, he said, looking slightly nervous. You all know I've been working on a business plan for my senior project. Andrew nodded. Everyone knew Khalil had been secretive about his project, working late nights and weekends. Well, today I finalized the paperwork, Khalil continued, opening the small box he brought earlier. He pulled out business cards and handed them around. Davis Community Tech is officially a registered non-profit organization. The cards read, Davis Community Tech, bringing technology and training to underserved neighborhoods. Rose's hand flew to her mouth. Khalil, what exactly is this? Khalil's eyes shone with excitement. It's a mobile tech lab, Grandma. We're converting old buses into computer classrooms that can travel to neighborhoods where kids don't have access to technology. We'll offer free classes, coding camps, and job training. That's incredible, Andrew said, studying the card. But starting a non-profit takes money. Khalil grinned. That's the other part of my announcement. I applied for a grant from the Harmon Foundation, and, he looked at Richard, they approved full funding for our first 3 years. Richard raised his glass. I had no idea it was Khalil's project when the application came across my desk. The Foundation's review board selected it based on merit alone. Rose wiped away tears. I'm so proud of both of you. There's one more thing, Khalil said. He handed an envelope to Andrew. This is for you, bro. Andrew opened it to find a job offer, Chief Technical Officer at Davis Community Tech. I know you've got offers from big engineering firms, Khalil said, but I thought maybe you'd want to work together, building something that could help kids like us. Andrew didn't hesitate. Of course I'm in. As the evening wound down, Richard looked at the two young men he'd mentored for 5 years. When I got that flat tire, I was at a crossroads in my life, questioning whether what I'd built mattered. You two not only fixed my tire, you helped me find my purpose again. And you changed our lives, Andrew said. Richard shook his head. No, you had it in you all along. I just helped clear some obstacles from your path. Outside the restaurant, as they were saying their goodbyes, a young boy approached them, trying to sell handmade keychains to support his school's art program. Without hesitation, Andrew, Khalil, and Richard each bought one, paying far more than the asking price. The boy looked at them in surprise. Really? Thank you so much. As he hurried away, Rose smiled knowingly at her grandsons. And so it continues, the circle of kindness. That's the real legacy. And she was right. What had begun with a simple act of helping someone with a flat tire had grown into something much bigger, a reminder that sometimes the smallest gesture of kindness can change not just one life, but many.